Good evening, dear friends, and a very warm welcome to each one of you. Wherever you're joining me from tonight, perhaps tucked safely under the blankets, curled up in your favorite quiet corner of the house, or lying somewhere peaceful while the world slowly quiets outside, I'm truly glad you're here with me. Take a slow, gentle breath in and let it out softly. Feel your shoulders soften and drop. Maybe pull the blanket or duvet up just a little higher, and allow the day to quietly, gently drift away from you. Evergreen Manor was the perfect stage for tragedy. Elegant, refined, every guest playing their role in a festive holiday tableau. Then Lady Victoria Evergreen was found dead in the drawing room, an evergreen wreath clutched in her rigid hands like a macabre prop. The wreath, adorned with crimson ribbons, lay askew on her chest, amidst pine needles scattered as if in a final, desperate struggle. Police saw a tragic accident, perhaps a fall amid the decorations. But Hercule Poirot saw a performance. Someone in this theatre of wealth was playing a role. The role of innocent, the role of murderer. The curtain rises. Chapter 1. The stage is set. The grand drawing room of Evergreen Manor shimmered in Art Deco splendor. Crystal chandeliers tinkled overhead like soft applause waiting to begin. Velvet curtains, heavy and deep green, framed tall windows where cold December rain tapped insistently. The roaring fire sent waves of warmth across polished parquet floors, carrying the comforting scent of wood smoke mingled with expensive Chanel perfume and the faint, rich curl of Cuban cigar smoke. Guests moved through the space in practiced elegance. Silk evening gowns rustled softly. Kid gloves brushed crystal champagne flutes. Crisp linen napkins lay folded beside plates of delicate canapes. Poirot, invited as a holiday guest by an old acquaintance, stood near the mahogany sideboard. He adjusted his magnificent moustache with precision and surveyed the scene. "Mon ami Hastings," he murmured, "observe this festive theatre. Every smile is too bright, every laugh rehearsed just a fraction too perfectly." Lady Victoria Evergreen glided among her visitors like the undisputed leading lady. Pearls gleamed at her throat. Her laughter rang clear and confident. Sir Reginald, her husband, stood by the fireplace puffing a cigar, the smoke rising in lazy spirals. The sharp tang of his sandalwood cologne cut through the sweeter notes of hothouse roses arranged in tall vases. Dr. Harlan Thorpe, the family physician, sipped champagne with calm precision. His white cuffs gleamed against dark dinner jacket sleeves. Miss Lydia Farnsworth, Victoria's old school friend, held her glass delicately, kid gloves soft against the chilled crystal. Young Amelia Evergreen twirled once in her tweed skirt, laughing at something her brother Bertram whispered. Bertram lounged against the cold marble mantel, fingers drumming an impatient rhythm on the stone. Then came the scream, high, sharp, slicing through the polite murmur like a missed line in the script. Elsie, the parlour maid, burst from the adjoining drawing room, face as white as her starched apron. "My lady, she's not moving." Footsteps thundered across parquet. Guests crowded the doorway. Lady Victoria lay near the tall Christmas tree, its lights twinkling mockingly above her. Then an evergreen wreath, meant originally for the front door, rested across her chest. Crimson ribbons were tangled in her fingers. Faint bruises showed beneath the pine needles at her throat. The fire crackled louder in the sudden silence. Rain drummed harder against the glass. Poirot stepped forward. He tilted his egg-shaped head. His green eyes gleamed with quiet intensity. "Mais oui," he said softly. "The stage is set for murder. This wreath is no mere decoration. It is a prop, placed with deliberate care in a deadly performance." Sir Reginald staggered. His cigar fell to the rug, ember winking out. Victoria. How can this be? His voice held steady, almost too steady. Watch this performance carefully, mon ami. Is it truth or theatre? Poirot knelt beside the body. He noted Sir Reginald's dry eyes, the perfectly aligned watch chain, and the hands that did not tremble. The police will speak of accidental strangulation. Perhaps she tripped while hanging garlands. But Hercule Poirot sees the director's touch. Someone arranged this tableau. Amelia pressed a handkerchief to her mouth. Bertram poured brandy with a shaking hand. The crystal decanter clinked against the glass. Dr. Thorpe bent to examine the body. His fingers moved with professional calm. Asphyxiation, certainly. Possibly manual. His voice remained level, yet Poirot caught the faintest tremor beneath the words. The mask slips. Did you catch it? Poirot rose and addressed the stunned group. Mesdames et messieurs, you are now players in Poirot's theatre. Each of you will perform your role. But truth does not rehearse. Truth forgets its lines eventually. Miss Farnsworth clutched her pearl necklace. The beads felt cold against flushed skin. The scent of lilies grew cloying, mixing with bitter continental coffee hastily brought by Mr. Graves, the butler. Elsie hovered near the doorway, apron crisp, eyes wide. You watch with Poirot, non? You see how this one's hands tremble? Bertram lit a cigarette. The match flame danced in the warm air. Who could possibly, he muttered. The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice the ribbons on the wreath, tied too neatly, too symmetrically. No frantic victim ties such knots. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. Order and method. This is how we unmask the performer. Ask yourself, why does she avoid his eyes? Amelia turned her face away from Dr. Thorpe. Her cheeks burned in the firelight. The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. And Sir Reginald paced. Leather soles creaked on parquet. The grandfather clock chimed the quarter hour, each note heavy and deliberate. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small, neat hands. The psychology, it is everything. Who gains from this curtain's fall? This actor plays grief, but observe the eyes. Where is the moisture? Miss Farnsworth dabbed at dry cheeks. Her performance remained polished, controlled, too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles, lies flow smooth. Poirot rearranged scattered pine needles into a neat line on a nearby table. The director method. Sir Reginald, the performance. He kneels, touches his wife's hand. Voice cracks on cue. Shoulders slump in despair. The tell. Yet his watch chain lies perfectly straight. Fingers rest calm. No frantic clutching. The psychology. I recall the Styles tragedy, and a husband performed mourning with mirror-rehearsed sobs. Every gesture matched the widow's script, except one glance at the clock, too eager for what came after. The body betrays even when the face lies. Grief brings disorder. Performance craves control. The truth, therefore Sir Reginald expected this death. His sorrow is costume, not feeling. You see it now, non? Expensive perfume hung heavy. Chanel layered over furniture wax. Guests sipped hot coffee. Its strong bitterness lingered on every tongue. Velvet curtains swayed gently in a draught from the terrace doors. Consider the psychology. What role does this person need to play? Dr. Thorpe's calm helpfulness felt suddenly rehearsed. The spotlight of truth hovers. On whom will it fall? For now the police were summoned. Heavy boots would soon echo through the hall. Poirot touched his moustache thoughtfully one final time. The stage was set. The actors had taken their places. Let the drama begin. Chapter 2. Enter the players. The morning after the tragedy dawned grey and damp over Evergreen Manor. Pale winter light filtered through tall Art Deco windows, casting long shadows across the polished parquet floor of the breakfast room. The scent of strong continental coffee rose from silver pots on the sideboard, mingling with lingering traces of wood smoke from last night's fire, and the faint sweetness of hothouse lilies still arranged in crystal vases. Crisp linen napkins lay folded beside porcelain plates. The grandfather clock in the hall chimed 8, each note deliberate and heavy. Poirot sat at the head of the long mahogany table, arranging his cutlery with perfect symmetry, and he sipped hot black coffee, its bitter richness waking the little grey cells, and regarded the empty chairs. "Mon ami Hastings," he said quietly, "the players now enter the stage. Each scene will show us their assigned role, or the cracks in their mask." Sir Reginald Evergreen appeared first. He wore a rough tweed jacket that rasped softly against the polished chair back as he sat. His face looked drawn, eyes shadowed, yet his hands moved with calm precision as he poured coffee. "I loved Victoria more than anything in this world," he declared, voice low and measured. "Last night I was alone in the study after dinner, reading. I heard nothing until the scream. Watch this performance carefully, mon ami. Is it truth or theatre?" Poirot noted the napkin folded exactly in thirds. No nervous creasing, no tremor. Amelia Evergreen entered next. Her silk blouse rustled faintly. She chose the chair farthest from her father. "Mother was everything to me," she whispered. She pressed a lace handkerchief to dry eyes. "I went for a walk on the terrace after dinner. The cold air cleared my head. I came back inside just before it happened. The mask slips. Did you catch it?" Her glance flicked toward the doorway, where Dr. Thorpe would soon appear. Bertram slouched in moments later. He ignored the coffee and reached instead for the champagne left from last night. The cork had already been removed. He poured with deliberate care, the pale liquid fizzing softly against crystal. "She deserved better than this bloody holiday charade," he muttered. "I was out, drove into the village, had a drink at the pub, came back late. You watch with Poirot, no? You see how this one's hands do not tremble, too steady for genuine shock, too composed for a son who has lost his mother." Miss Lydia Farnsworth glided in wearing a soft wool dress the color of winter smoke. Her kid gloves remained on as she accepted coffee from Graves. "Victoria and I shared everything since our school days," she said smoothly. "Secrets, laughter, even disappointments. I retired early last night. Headache. I heard nothing until Elsie screamed." The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice how her eyes never quite rest on the spot where the wreath had lain. Dr. Harlan Thorpe entered last among the family circle. His leather medical bag thumped softly onto the floor beside his chair. The sharp scent of sandalwood cologne arrived with him. "As the physician, I examined the body," he stated clinically. "Asphyxiation by ligature, almost certainly manual. No sign of prior illness or struggle beyond what one would expect. I was making my usual evening rounds of the house, checking on an elderly guest upstairs. Returned downstairs too late. Ask yourself, why does she avoid his eyes?" Amelia turned her face toward the rain-streaked window the moment Thorpe spoke. Mr. Graves, the butler, stood near the sideboard in rigid posture. "I served the family for 23 years, sir," he said quietly. "I was attending to the library fire when the tragedy occurred." Elsie lingered just outside the doorway, apron still crisp, hands clasped tightly. The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head. Each of you has now stated your role, and now we test the script. He turned first to Sir Reginald. Alone in the study the entire time after 10 o'clock. No one saw you. No one heard the grandfather clock strike the quarters with you. Reginald met his gaze steadily. That is correct. Poirot's green eyes gleamed. Interesting. The clock in the hall can be heard clearly in the study, yet you claim to have noticed nothing unusual. This actor plays grief. But observe the eyes. Where is the moisture? Still dry. No redness, no swelling. Amelia spoke next, voice small. The inheritance. Mother controlled most of it. There were discussions, but I would never. Her sentence trailed away. Bertram gave a short, bitter laugh. Too perfect. Too rehearsed. Truth stumbles. Lies flow smooth. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. The psychology. It is everything. Motive hides behind performance. Greed, jealousy, resentment, love that has soured. Dr. Thorpe interjected calmly. If I may, Monsieur Poirot, Victoria was in excellent health. If this was murder, it required opportunity and strength. Not everyone in this room possesses both. Consider the psychology. What role does this person need to play? Thorpe's helpful professionalism felt suddenly like armor. The chandelier above tinkled faintly as a draught moved through the room. Rain tapped insistently at the windows. Sweet liqueur was offered round the table. Its cloying taste lingered on nervous tongues. We approach the revelation. Have you begun to see the leading player? Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. Contradictions appear already, like actors forgetting their cues. Alibis overlap in curious ways. Do timelines bend where they should be rigid? Graves cleared his throat. If I may, sir. I did see a shadow moving near the drawing-room door shortly before the discovery. But it was very brief. Bertram stubbed out a cigarette with unnecessary force. The ashtray clinked against mahogany. If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? Most of them were trying very hard indeed. The fire in the grate crackled, sending a brief shower of sparks upward. The scent of furniture wax rose from the sideboard Elsie had polished that morning. Crystal glasses caught the weak morning light and threw tiny rainbows across the linen. Poirot arranged 3 coffee spoons in perfect alignment. Every actor has taken their mark. But in this theatre of Evergreen Manor, someone is playing a part they did not rehearse enough. The players had entered, but who performed truth and who performed lies? Chapter 3. The First Act. The drawing-room of Evergreen Manor still carried the faint chill of tragedy, despite the roaring fire. Pale afternoon light slanted through tall windows, catching motes of dust above the parquet floor, where pine needles from the wreath still lay scattered like forgotten stage dressing. The air held the sharp, resinous scent of evergreen, mixed with lingering traces of Cuban cigar smoke, and the heavy sweetness of hothouse lilies wilting slowly in their crystal vase. Poirot paced slowly before the Christmas tree, its lights now extinguished, and touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. The first act unfolds, Mon ami Hastings, he said quietly. We move behind the footlights now. We search for the moment the mask first cracks. He began in Lady Victoria's bedroom. The door closed with a soft, expensive click. Polished mahogany furniture gleamed under the weak winter sun. Poirot opened the top drawer of the dressing table and discovered a small bundle of letters tied with faded ribbon. The paper felt crisp and slightly brittle between his fingers. He scanned them quickly, passionate notes from years earlier, signed only with an initial H. One paragraph caught his eye. A promise to meet secretly during a Christmas house party long past. The handwriting was unmistakably masculine. Watch this performance carefully, mon ami. Is it truth or theatre? Amelia entered behind him without knocking. Her silk dress rustled as she froze in the doorway. "Those are private," she said quickly. "Old letters. You've nothing to do with what happened." The mask slips. "Did you catch it?" Her voice was too swift, too defensive. Poirot replaced the letters neatly. "Old letters can still cast long shadows, mademoiselle." Next, he visited Bertram's room. The scent of tobacco hung thick. An ashtray overflowed on the bedside table. Among papers on the desk lay several gambling markers, large sums owed to London clubs. The rough, cheap paper contrasted sharply with the room's luxury. Bertram appeared moments later, cigarette already lit. "I have debts, yes," he admitted with forced nonchalance. "Mother knew. She refused to pay them off this time. Said I must learn responsibility." He exhaled smoke in a long, steady stream. "You watch with Poirot, non? You see how this one's hands do not shake? Too calm, too rehearsed." Miss Farnsworth's guest suite was next. On the nightstand stood a small brown bottle. Bitter medicine, the label read, for nerves. Poirot uncorked it briefly. The sharp, medicinal odor stung his nostrils. When he replaced the cap, Miss Farnsworth entered, kid gloves still on. "That is prescribed," she said smoothly. "I have suffered from insomnia for years. Victoria knew." The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice how tightly she grips the doorframe. Dr. Thorpe's medical bag rested in the library when Poirot examined it later. Inside, among instruments, lay several identical vials. One bore the same label as Miss Farnsworth's bottle. The leather of the bag felt smooth and well used under Poirot's fingers. Ask yourself, why does she avoid his eyes? During afternoon tea in the drawing room, Amelia turned her face away every time Dr. Thorpe spoke to her. Hot coffee steamed in porcelain cups. Its strong continental bitterness lingered on every tongue. The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. Poirot gathered them briefly near the fireplace. Velvet cushions gave softly under weight. The grandfather clock chimed 3, each stroke solemn. "A small revelation already," Poirot announced. "Miss Farnsworth, you knew of an old affair between Lady Victoria and a man whose initial was H. You did not mention this last night." Miss Farnsworth paled slightly. The fire crackled behind her. "It was ancient history," she murmured. "Irrelevant. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles. Lies flow smooth." Poirot's green eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "The first mask has cracked, mes amis. More will follow. This actor plays grief. But observe the eyes. Where is the moisture?" Graves, standing discreetly by the door, had dabbed at dry eyes when speaking of his mistress earlier. Now a faint sheen appeared. Perhaps genuine, perhaps another layer of performance. Poirot arranged 3 pine needles into a tiny equilateral triangle on the mantel. Order and method. We peel back the layers. Now, the director method for Amelia. The performance. She stands with hands clasped modestly before her, eyes downcast, voice soft and tremulous when denying knowledge of the letter's contents. The posture is perfect, daughter, grieving, innocent, fragile. The tell. But observe, mon ami, when she speaks of the letters being old and meaningless, her fingers tighten until the knuckles whiten. The blush that rises is not shame. It is anticipation of being believed. The psychology. I am reminded of the Blue Train affair. A young woman performed wounded innocence with such artistry that even seasoned detectives hesitated. She had rehearsed every sigh, every downward glance before mirrors. Yet she made one fatal error. When confronted with proof, her gaze darted, not to the evidence, but to the man who would inherit. The body knows truth even when the tongue lies. Fear performs as modesty, but the pulse betrays, the fingers betray, the eyes betray. This is what the little grey cells understand. The performance can be technically flawless, yet the human machine cannot suppress every signal forever. The truth, therefore, Amelia knew far more than she admitted. These letters were not forgotten relics to her. You see it now, non? The first act weakens. Consider the psychology. What role does this person need to play? Dr. Thorpe stepped protectively closer to Amelia during the confrontation. His sandalwood cologne sharpened in the warm air. The chandelier tinkled overhead as a draught slipped past velvet curtains. Rain continued tapping at the windows like impatient fingers. Sweet liqueur was poured. Its cloying taste coated nervous tongues. We approach deeper revelations. Have you begun to spot the leading performer? The fire snapped, sending sparks dancing upward. Cold marble beneath the hearth chilled Poirot's shoes, even through leather soles. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve one final time. The first act concluded. Some masks had cracked. Chapter 4. Rehearsed Lines. The library of Evergreen Manor felt smaller in the late afternoon gloom. Tall bookshelves of polished mahogany absorbed what little light filtered through heavy velvet curtains. The fire crackled steadily in the grate, sending waves of warmth across the room, and carrying the comforting scent of wood smoke mingled with the sharp bite of furniture wax recently applied by Elsie. A tray of hot coffee and dry champagne sat on a low table. Crystal glasses caught faint glints from the chandelier above. Poirot had summoned the entire household here. No excuses, no delays. He stood before the assembled cast like a director addressing a faltering company. His small hands made an expressive gesture. Now we test the scripts you have so carefully prepared. Rehearsed lines, mes amis, begin to falter when the spotlight grows too bright. Sir Reginald sat first, tweed jacket rasping against the leather armchair. I have told you everything, he repeated. I was in the study from 10 until the scream. Alone, reading accounts. His voice remained level, almost mechanical. Watch this performance carefully, mon ami. Is it truth or theatre? Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head. The grandfather clock in the hall strikes every quarter hour with considerable volume. You heard nothing unusual. No footsteps, no door, no cry. During 2 full hours. Reginald's fingers rested calmly on the armrest. No tremor. Nothing. The mask slips. Did you catch it? A fractional pause before the answer. Too perfect. Amelia spoke next, seated on the edge of a velvet sofa, silk blouse whispering with every breath. I walked on the terrace for perhaps 20 minutes. The cold air was refreshing. I re-entered through the side door just before 11. I saw no one. You watch with Poirot, no? You see how this one's hands do not tremble. They did not. Yet her eyes flicked once, very briefly, toward Dr. Thorpe. Bertram lounged against a bookshelf, fresh cigarette already lit. Cuban smoke curled upward. I told you. Drove to the village. Had 2 pints at the Red Lion. Returned around 11:30. The gates were open. I didn't notice anything odd. The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice how smoothly the story flows. No hesitation, no searching for detail. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles. Lies flow smooth. Miss Farnsworth sat very straight, kid gloves folded neatly in her lap. I took a headache powder and retired at 9:30. My room is at the far end of the east wing. I heard nothing until Elsie's scream. Ask yourself, why does she avoid his eyes? When Reginald glanced her way, she looked down at once, at her gloves, at the carpet, anywhere but his face. Dr. Thorpe remained standing near the fireplace, hands clasped behind his back. Sandalwood cologne sharpened in the warm air. I made my usual evening check of the house. An elderly aunt of Lady Victoria's occupies the guest wing. I looked in on her at 10:15. Then I came downstairs. I arrived in the drawing room moments after the discovery. The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. Poirot moved to the center of the rug. Let us examine these alibis more closely. He turned first to Bertram. The Red Lion closes its public bar at 10:30 on weeknights in December. Yet you claim to have been drinking there until after 11. The landlord remembers you leaving at 10:20. Where were you, truly, for that missing hour? Bertram exhaled smoke sharply. I sat in the car, thinking, smoking. I didn't want to come back here yet. Poirot's green eyes gleamed. A convenient pause, but convenient pauses invite suspicion. This actor plays indifference. But observe the eyes. Where is the moisture? None. Only hardness. Next, Poirot faced Miss Farnsworth. You say you retired early with a headache. Yet Elsie reports hearing light footsteps in the corridor outside your room at approximately 10:45. Someone moving quietly, deliberately. Miss Farnsworth's gloved fingers tightened. She must be mistaken. Too perfect. Too rehearsed. Poirot made an expressive gesture. The psychology reveals much. When lines are too smooth, when details arrive without effort, we begin to smell rehearsal. He turned to Dr. Thorpe. Your rounds took you past the drawing room twice that evening. Once at 10, once after 10:30. You saw nothing unusual. Nothing, Thorpe replied. His voice stayed even, but a muscle twitched once at the corner of his jaw. Consider the psychology. What role does this person need to play? The helpful physician, the calm professional, yet helpfulness can mask complicity. The grandfather clock in the hall chimed the half-hour. Each stroke fell like a slow hammer. Rain tapped insistently at the windows. Sweet liqueur was passed round. Its cloying warmth coated anxious tongues. Poirot arranged 4 coffee spoons in perfect alignment on the tray. False performances expose themselves eventually. Truth needs no rehearsal. He addressed the room once more. Oh, Sir Reginald, your financial ledgers show alarming debts. Lady Victoria refused to cover them this quarter. A powerful motive, none. Reginald stiffened. I would never harm her. Amelia whispered, Father. Bertram laughed once, short and bitter. We're all suspects now, aren't we? Graves stood silent by the door, face impassive. Elsie hovered just outside, apron still crisp despite the long day. We approached deeper cracks. Have you identified the leading performer? The chandelier tinkled overhead as a draught moved through the room. Cold marble beneath the hearth, chilled ankles even through thick stockings. The fire snapped, sending a shower of sparks upward. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve with deliberate care. Rehearsed lines are beginning to falter. The script is failing. And when the script fails, the actor panics. Champagne glasses clinked nervously as hands reached for refills. The dry fizz tasted suddenly flat on every tongue. Poirot's small figure drew itself up. We are entering the moment when masks become heavy, when they itch, when they must be torn away. Rehearsed lines began to falter. Truth needed no rehearsal. Chapter 5. The Mask Slips. The conservatory at the rear of Evergreen Manor had become a humid, glass-walled refuge from the winter chill outside. Hothouse roses climbed iron trellises, their heavy perfume cloying in the warm, moist air. Rain drummed steadily on the pitched glass roof, a constant soft percussion that drowned distant sounds from the main house. Crystal droplets slid down the panes like slow tears. A small fountain bubbled in the corner, its water warm and faintly chlorinated. Poirot had chosen this isolated space deliberately, for confrontation, for revelation. He stood near a wrought iron bench, hands clasped behind his back, waiting. Dr. Harlan Thorpe entered first, medical bag in hand out of habit. His leather shoes left faint wet prints on the tiled floor. Sandalwood cologne arrived before him, sharp against the floral sweetness. "Your role as healer has been most convincing, Doctor," Poirot began quietly. The calm voice, the steady hands, the helpful offers of sedatives and sympathy. Yet masks grow heavy after many hours under lights, non? Thorpe set the bag down with deliberate care. "I don't understand what you're implying, Monsieur Poirot." "Watch this performance carefully, mon ami. Is it truth or theatre?" Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head. "You understand perfectly. The vial in your bag, the one matching Miss Farnsworth's nerve medicine. The same preparation found in trace amounts during the post-mortem. Not enough to kill alone, but enough to weaken, to confuse, to make a victim drowsy before stronger hands closed around her throat." Thorpe's jaw tightened once, almost imperceptibly. "That compound is widely prescribed. Coincidence? The mask slips. Did you catch it?" Before Poirot could reply, the glass door opened again. Amelia hurried in, silk dress whispering against damp tiles. Her face was flushed from running through cold corridors. "Leave him alone," she cried. "You've no right to accuse Harlan of anything." Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. "Ah, the protective entrance. Most dramatic, most revealing." Amelia moved to stand beside Thorpe. Their shoulders brushed, too close for mere friendship, too instinctive for casual acquaintance. "You watch with Poirot, no? You see how this one's hands tremble." Now they did. Thorpe's right hand twitched toward hers before he caught himself. The rest of the household arrived soon after, summoned by Graves. Sir Reginald, Bertram, Miss Farnsworth, even Elsie, all crowded into the steamy space. The air grew thicker with expensive perfume, cigar smoke clinging to Reginald's tweed, bitter coffee on nervous breaths. Bertram spoke first, voice rough. "If anyone had reason, it was you, Doctor. Everyone knows you and Amelia were carrying on behind Mother's back. She found out, didn't she? Threatened to cut Amelia off. So you silenced her." Thorpe drew himself up. "That is a foul lie." Amelia gasped. "Bertram." Poirot raised one hand. "Silence. I let us see the performance break." He turned to Thorpe. "You administered a mild sedative to Lady Victoria that evening, under the guise of her usual tonic. Not enough to kill, just enough to dull her reflexes, to make her easy prey when the real murderer struck. You did this for love, to protect Amelia from disinheritance. But murder? Non. That was someone else's final line." Thorpe exhaled sharply. I gave her nothing lethal. I swear it." The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice Amelia's sudden relief. Her shoulders dropped, her eyes filled, not with fear, but with something close to gratitude. Ask yourself, why does she avoid his eyes no longer? She met Thorpe's gaze openly now, desperately. The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. Poirot's green eyes gleamed in the soft conservatory light. The affair has been an open secret to everyone except, perhaps, the victim herself until recently. But the wreath, the symbol, evergreen, eternal, a mocking gesture, placed by someone who knew Victoria's old romantic history, someone who resented being forever in the background. Miss Farnsworth gave a small, choked sound. Real tears appeared at last, tears of long-buried jealousy, not recent grief. This actor plays grief, but observe the eyes. Where is the moisture? Now it came, copious, genuine. Poirot's director method for Dr. Thorpe. The performance. He stands erect, voice firm in denial, hands clasped behind him in the classic posture of professional composure. The healer protecting his patient's memory. The tell. But observe, mon ami. The pulse beats visibly at his throat. Too fast for calm. His eyes dart to Amelia every few seconds, seeking absolution, not evidence. The psychology. In the sad Cyprus tragedy, a physician performed duty and detachment, while passion burned beneath. He measured every word, every gesture. Yet love cannot be hidden entirely. The body leans toward its object, the breath quickens, the pupils dilate. The psyche craves union even as the mind denies it. Guilt over complicity performs as righteousness, but the tells multiply. The truth, therefore, Thorpe's guilt is partial, accessory through silence and sedation, but not the hand that tightened the wreath's ribbons. You see it now, no? The mask shatters, not completely, but enough. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles, lies flow smooth. But here, truth surged forward raw and unscripted. Poirot stepped closer to the group. The wreath was no random decoration. It was chosen deliberately, a cruel echo of a promise Victoria once made to another man long ago. Someone overheard that story. Someone felt discarded, invisible. Someone who served quietly for years, while others took the spotlight. All eyes turned slowly toward Elsie. The parlor maid stood near the door, apron still crisp, hands now visibly shaking. Rain hammered the glass roof louder, as if the sky itself demanded confession. Consider the psychology. What role does this person need to play? The loyal servant, the invisible one, until she could bear it no longer. Champagne stood forgotten on a side table, its chill long gone. The fountain bubbled on, indifferent. Velvet leaves of tropical plants brushed against sleeves as people shifted uncomfortably. Poirot arranged 3 fallen rose petals into a neat row on the bench. The spotlight of truth is blinding. On whom does it fall hardest now? Elsie's lips parted. No sound came at first. Then a whisper. She was going to dismiss me. After 20 years. Because of money troubles. The mask had fallen. Beneath it, the true face, at last. Chapter 6. Behind the Curtain. The attics of Evergreen Manor lay above the main house like forgotten backstage storage, dim and chill even in midday. Dust motes drifted in thin shafts of grey winter light that pierced cracked skylights. The air smelled strongly of old leather trunks, mothballs, and the faint musty sweetness of yellowed papers, long undisturbed. Rough wooden beams crossed overhead, cobwebs draped like abandoned scenery. Poirot climbed the narrow stairs carefully, his polished shoes scraping softly on bare treads. Hastings followed, breathing heavily in the cold. "Behind the curtain, mon ami," Poirot murmured. "We find the props no audience ever sees, the discarded scripts, the hidden motives." He opened the first trunk he encountered, Inside lay bundles of old correspondence tied with faded ribbon. One packet bore Lady Victoria's neat handwriting on the envelopes. Poirot untied it with deliberate care. The letters were from Sir Reginald, early courtship notes, passionate and hopeful. But tucked deeper was a single sheet in different hand. Reginald's solicitor, dated only 6 months earlier. It detailed mounting debts, foreclosure threats on the Manor itself, and a blunt warning: without Lady Victoria's fortune, ruin was certain. Watch this performance carefully, mon ami. Is it truth or theatre? Sir Reginald's mask of grieving widower had hidden desperation far longer than anyone suspected. Poirot moved to another chest. Here he found Amelia's possessions: old school exercise books, pressed flowers, and a small packet of recent letters. One, in Dr. Thorpe's precise script, spoke openly of elopement. "We leave after Christmas. She cannot stop us forever." The paper was still crisp, ink fresh. Silk ribbons from an old gown lay beside them, soft, forgotten tokens of a girl who once dreamed differently. The mask slips. Did you catch it? Amelia's performance of dutiful daughter had concealed a plan to escape her mother's control entirely. Bertram's corner of the attic held fewer secrets, but sharper ones. A locked tin box yielded to Poirot's gentle persuasion. Inside, pawn tickets for family jewellery, the forged signatures on promissory notes, angry letters from creditors. One note from Lady Victoria herself, dated 2 weeks earlier. "No more money. Learn to stand on your own." Bertram's resentment had festered in silence. "You watch with Poirot, non? You see how this one's hands would tremble if he knew we were here." Miss Farnsworth's trunk was smallest, but heaviest with emotion. Tucked beneath folded linens lay a bundle of unsent letters, addressed to Reginald, written over decades. Words of unrequited love, jealousy of Victoria, bitter regret. One, dated only days before the murder. "You chose her once. You will regret it still." The paper smelled faintly of her perfume, faded now but unmistakable. The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice how these letters mirror the wreath. Evergreen, eternal, a symbol twisted into accusation. Graves had his own small box near the eaves. Inside, a ledger of petty thefts over years. Small sums skimmed from household accounts, justified in cramped notes as repayment for years of service. Loyalty had its price. Elsie's belongings were sparse. A single photograph, Lady Victoria at 25, radiant, wearing the very wreath now stained with murder. On the back, in faded pencil, "To my dearest friend, Christmas 1918. Below it, in Elsie's careful hand, "She promised we would always be family. Promises break." Ask yourself, why does the servant keep such a memento? The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. Poirot arranged the discovered items on an old blanket spread across the dusty floor. Letters, ledgers, photographs, each piece a wire in the hidden machinery of motive. The chill air made his breath visible. He drew himself up to full height anyway. "Every relationship in this house had its backstage," he said softly. "Victoria controlled money, therefore love, therefore loyalty. When that control threatened to slip, masks hardened into weapons. This actor plays loyalty. But observe the eyes. Where is the moisture?" In memory, Elsie's had been dry at first, then flooded in the conservatory. Genuine at last. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles, lies flow smooth. But here, behind the curtain, no rehearsal was possible. Only raw connection and betrayal. Poirot's director method for Elsie, preliminary glimpse. The performance, she weeps on cue, assists diligently, voice meek and deferential. the perfect servant always in shadow. Read the tell, but observe. The wreath placed with maid's precision, ribbons tied in the exact bow she used daily for parcels and decorations. No frantic struggle marks on the branches. The psychology. In the ABC murders, the insignificant figure performed invisibility so well that suspicion passed him by, until psychology revealed ambition beneath humility. Servants wear the mask of deference, but resentment festers in silence. The hand that serves also tightens. The psyche demands acknowledgement. When denied, it strikes from the wings. The truth. Elsie overheard more than a dismissal. She heard Victoria's old promise of security, now withdrawn. You see it now, Non. The curtain parts. Consider the psychology. What role does this person need to play? The invisible one, until visibility became vengeance. The distant piano tinkled faintly from downstairs, someone attempting Christmas carols, the notes thin and false in the cold attic air. Rain continued its steady drumming on the roof. Sweet memories of champagne downstairs, now tasted only of ash. Reflection. Behind every curtain in Evergreen Manor, Poirot uncovered not mere secrets, but the architecture of human motive. People hide because exposure threatens survival. Greed performs as necessity, love as indifference, hate as duty. I recall the cruise on the Karnak, where tangled relationships formed a web so tight that each actor concealed betrayal under luxury's gloss. A woman played devoted wife while plotting revenge. Her smile was rehearsed hourly. Yet one tell emerged, fingers gripping a railing too tightly during confrontation. The psyche buries pain deep, but pressure forces it upward like steam under a lid. No secret survives forever. The human soul craves confession, or at least the slip that confesses for it. To you, the listener, peer behind your own curtains. What motive drives the role you play when no one watches? Behind every curtain, a secret. Behind every secret, a motive. Chapter 7. The Final Act. The drawing room of Evergreen Manor had been transformed once more, this time into the theatre's final stage. Heavy velvet curtains were drawn against the December dusk, shutting out the rain that still tapped insistently at the windows. Every chandelier blazed, crystals tinkling like expectant applause held in suspense. The fire roared in the grate, sending waves of warmth across polished parquet, and carrying the mingled scents of wood smoke, fading hothouse lilies, and the sharp bite of Cuban cigar smoke that clung stubbornly to Sir Reginald's tweed. A long table had been cleared. Crystal glasses of untouched champagne stood in a precise row like silent witnesses. The grandfather clock in the hall struck 8. Slow, solemn, final. Poirot stood at the center of the rug, small but commanding, his egg-shaped head tilted slightly, as though listening to an invisible orchestra tune. The entire cast had been summoned. Sir Reginald, Amelia, Bertram, Miss Farnsworth, Dr. Thorpe, Graves, and Elsie. They sat or stood in a loose semicircle, faces pale in the chandelier light, hands restless on velvet cushions or crisp aprons. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began, voice clear and deliberate. You have each performed for Hercule Poirot, some with truth, some with considerable artifice. Now the curtain must fall. Let us review the performances, shall we? He turned first to Sir Reginald. Sir Reginald, you played the grieving widower with admirable restraint. The steady voice, the dry eyes, the perfectly aligned watch chain, even as you knelt beside your wife. But grief demands disorder. Your performance was too controlled, because you already knew the inheritance would save you from ruin. You anticipated this death, yet you did not cause it. Your mask was one of expectation, not murder. Reginald exhaled slowly, shoulders dropping for the first time. Poirot moved to Amelia. Mademoiselle Amelia, you performed the innocent, devoted daughter, eyes averted from Dr. Thorpe, hands clasped in modesty. But innocent daughters do not plan secret elopements while their mother still breathes. Your love for the doctor was real. Your silence about the sedative he gave her was complicity, not murder. Accessory through fear of disinheritance. The mask of filial duty has fallen. Amelia reached for Thorpe's hand. He did not pull away. Bertram, Poirot continued, you played the reckless, resentful son. Debts, forged notes, bitter laughter. A convincing portrait of motive. Yet wayward sons who forge documents do not strangle with wreaths. They forge checks. Your performance hid greed, not homicide. Bertram stubbed out a cigarette with unnecessary force. The ashtray clinked against mahogany. Miss Farnsworth, the loyal friend, the confidant, you performed nostalgia and quiet grief beautifully. But loyal friends do not hoard decades of unsent love letters to the husband of their dearest companion. Jealousy burned beneath your kindness, yet it never ignited into murder, only into silent, consuming regret. Miss Farnsworth dabbed at real tears now. The handkerchief was damp at last. Dr. Thorpe, the helpful physician, calm, professional. You performed detachment while passion ruled you. The sedative you administered weakened Lady Victoria, made her an easier victim. You acted from love, protecting Amelia. But love that drugs is not innocent. Still, you are not the strangler. Thorpe bowed his head once. Graves, the faithful butler. 23 years of service performed with impeccable stoicism. You saw shadows, heard whispers, skimmed small sums to ease old age. Loyalty masked self-preservation. But butlers who steal do not kill, they endure. Graves stood straighter, dignity intact. And so we come to our leading performer. Poirot turned slowly toward Elsie. The parlour-maid stood near the doorway, apron still crisp, hands now visibly trembling at her sides. The firelight caught the sheen of sudden sweat on her brow. "Elsie," Poirot said gently, "you gave the most convincing performance of all. The shocked discovery, the helpful rushing about, the quiet tears when questioned, the perfect servant, always in the background, always useful, magnifique. But you made one small, fatal error." He stepped closer. The evergreen wreath, placed across her chest with maid's precision. Ribbons tied in the exact symmetrical bow you use every day, for parcels, for decorations, for Lady Victoria's Christmas gifts. No frantic victim ties such knots. And the branches, scarcely disturbed. A struggle would have scattered needles wildly. See, yours did not. Elsie's lips parted. No sound. "You overheard her final decision 2 days earlier," Poirot continued. "Dismissal after 20 years. No pension, no security. The woman who once promised you would always be family now cast you aside like an old apron. Resentment, long rehearsed in silence, finally took the stage. You waited until the sedative dulled her. Then you acted, quickly, quietly, with the wreath that symbolized broken promises. Evergreen, eternal. A mockery turned murder weapon. Watch this performance carefully, mon ami. Is it truth or theatre?" Elsie's mask shattered. She sank to her knees on the parquet, apron crumpling. Real sobs broke from her, raw, unrehearsed. Tears streamed freely. The mask slips. Did you catch it? Her hands shook violently now. No control left. You watch with Poirot, no? So you see how this one's hands tremble. Yes, at last. The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice the single pine needle still caught in her apron hem. evidence overlooked until this moment. Ask yourself, why does the invisible one suddenly become so visible? Because the spotlight found her. The tension peaked and broke. Elsie whispered through sobs. She promised. Christmas, 1918. We would always. I believed her. Poirot's director method for Elsie. The performance, she screams on cue, assists diligently, voice soft and deferential. The model servant, eyes downcast, hands busy. The tell, but the wreath's bow is too perfect. Branches barely crushed. No chaos of struggle. The psychology. In the ABC murders, the overlooked figure performed insignificance until ambition could no longer be contained. Servants wear humility like costume. Beneath it, resentment simmers. When promises break, the mask becomes unbearable. The hand that polishes also tightens. The psyche demands recognition, even if only in vengeance. The truth, Elsie killed to reclaim dignity stolen. You see it now, no? Poirot made one final expressive gesture. The performance is over. The curtain falls. The truth takes her bow. The room was silent, except for Elsie's quiet weeping and the crackle of the fire. The final act concluded. Only truth survived the curtain call. Chapter 8. Curtain. Call. The drawing-room of Evergreen Manor fell into a hush deeper than any that had preceded it. The fire, which had roared so fiercely during the revelation, now burned lower, its flames casting long, wavering shadows across the parquet floor. The velvet curtains remained drawn tight against the winter night. Rain had finally ceased, leaving only the occasional drip from eaves. The heavy scent of wood smoke lingered, mingling with the fading perfume of wilting lilies and the sharp, lingering trace of Cuban cigar smoke that still clung to Reginald's tweed jacket. Crystal chandeliers tinkled faintly overhead as the house settled, as though the building itself exhaled after holding its breath for days. Poirot stood near the mantel, small hands clasped behind his back, watching the cast of this long, exhausting performance react to the fall of the final curtain. No applause would follow, only the slow, inexorable arrival of justice. Elsie remained on her knees where she had collapsed. Her crisp apron was crumpled now, streaked with dust from the parquet. Real tears carved clean paths down her cheeks. Her shoulders shook with sobs no longer rehearsed. 2 uniformed constables had arrived quietly from the village. They stood by the doorway, respectful but immovable. One placed a gentle hand on her elbow. "Come along now, miss," he said softly. She rose without resistance, legs unsteady, and allowed herself to be led away. The sound of her footsteps, slow, shuffling, echoed down the corridor like the last lines of a tragedy, fading into silence. Watch this performance carefully, mon ami. Is it truth or theatre? No performance remained, only raw, stripped humanity. Sir Reginald sank into the nearest armchair. The tweed jacket, once worn with the rigid posture of control, now hung loosely on his frame. He stared into the dying fire. "I knew she was going to cut me off entirely," he said at last, and voice low and cracked. "The debts, the manor, everything would have been lost. I waited for her to die naturally. I never lifted a hand, but I cannot pretend I am not relieved." He looked up at Poirot. "Does that make me as guilty as her?" Poirot tilted his head. "Relief is not murder, Sir Reginald, but relief without sorrow is a heavy mask to carry. You will rebuild. Modestly, perhaps. The truth has freed you from one prison, even as it sends another to justice." The mask slips. Did you catch it? Reginald's eyes were wet at last. Not theatrical tears, but quiet, private ones. Amelia clung to Dr. Thorpe's arm. Her silk blouse was creased from hours of tension, Strands of hair had escaped their careful arrangement. "I should have told someone about the tonic he gave her," she whispered. "I was afraid. Afraid Mother would disinherit me completely if she knew about us." Thorpe covered her hand with his own. His professional calm had cracked. His voice trembled when he spoke. "I never meant harm. Only to buy us time. You watch with Poirot, non? You see how this one's hands tremble. Now they did, both of them, with shared remorse and tentative hope. The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice how they lean toward each other instinctively. No more averted glances. No more hidden glances. Truth had burned away the need for secrecy. Bertram stood apart, lighting yet another cigarette, with fingers that shook only slightly now. The smoke rose in a thin, steady column. "I hated her sometimes," he admitted. "The endless lectures, the closed purse, but I never wanted her dead." He exhaled slowly. "And maybe now I can stop running from debts that aren't even mine anymore." He looked at Poirot. "Will the creditors still come?" "Some debts must be paid," Poirot replied gently. "But others can be renegotiated. You have time now. Use it wisely." Miss Farnsworth sat on the velvet sofa, handkerchief damp and twisted in her lap. Her kid gloves lay discarded beside her. First time all weekend she had removed them. "I loved him once," she said quietly, glancing at Reginald. "And hated her for winning him. But hate is exhausting. I'm tired of carrying it." She looked around the room. "Perhaps I shall travel. See places we always talked about going together. Without the bitterness this time. Ask yourself, why does she no longer avoid his eyes? Because the performance of loyalty had ended. What remained was honest regret and release." Graves moved silently around the room, collecting empty glasses on a silver tray. His posture was as erect as ever, yet something in his shoulders had softened. "I took small amounts over the years," he confessed without prompting. "Thought it was owed, but it was theft all the same." He paused. "Will there be charges, sir?" Poirot regarded him. "That is for the law. But confession is its own justice, no? You served faithfully in other ways. Perhaps that will be remembered." The grandfather clock chimed the half-hour, soft, almost apologetic. The fire popped once, sending a shower of sparks upward. Cold champagne stood forgotten on side tables. Its dry fizz had long gone flat. The room smelled now of cooling wax from the candles, and the clean, damp scent of rain-soaked earth drifting in through a cracked window. Consider the psychology. What role does each person need to play now? No longer the grieving, the loyal, the helpful, the invisible. Simply themselves, flawed, relieved, grieving in truth at last. Poirot arranged 3 crystal glasses into perfect alignment on the mantel. One last gesture of order amid chaos. His green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction. The theater of Evergreen Manor has emptied its stage. Masks discarded, lines forgotten. What remains is not applause, but consequence. The constables led Elsie through the front hall. The heavy oak door closed behind them with a final resonant thud. No screams, no protests. Only the sound of a motorcar starting in the drive, then fading into the night. Reginald rose slowly. "I shall write to the solicitors tomorrow. Settle what can be settled." Amelia nodded, still holding Thorpe's hand, and Bertram crushed his cigarette stub. Miss Farnsworth smoothed her skirt and stood. Graves carried the tray toward the kitchen. Routine, yet somehow lighter. No one spoke of celebration. No one toasted. The weekend's festivity had died with Lady Victoria. What replaced it was something quieter, more honest. Poirot touched his magnificent moustache, thoughtfully one final time. The curtain call has come. No encores, only justice, and perhaps in time, peace. No applause for this performance, only justice. Chapter 9. After the show. Evergreen Manor lay quiet in the pale light of a January morning 2 weeks after the curtain had fallen. The heavy velvet drapes had been drawn back from every tall window, letting cold, clean daylight flood the rooms for the first time in months. No Christmas tree stood in the drawing room now. Its place had been swept bare, the scattered pine needles long vacuumed away. The air smelled different, less of wood smoke and wilting lilies, more of furniture wax freshly applied, and the crisp bite of frost drifting in whenever a door opened. Parquet floors gleamed under careful polishing. Crystal chandeliers had been taken down and washed, their tinkling replaced by the soft hush of purposeful movement. Poirot walked slowly through the ground floor one last time before departure. He arranged a final trio of objects on the mahogany sideboard: a silver coffee pot, a crystal vase with fresh winter evergreens, simple branches, no wreath, and a single white orchid in bloom. Order restored. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. "The theatre has emptied, mon ami Hastings," he murmured. "But the echoes remain. Let us see what transformations the truth has wrought." Sir Reginald Evergreen had sold off 2 of the outlying farms to settle the most pressing debts. The manor itself would remain: smaller staff, fewer guests, no more lavish weekends. But he walked the halls with straighter shoulders. The rough tweed jacket he once wore like armor now hung loosely. He had traded it for a plain wool coat, more suited to a man learning to live within means. "I wake up each morning without the weight of secrets," he told Poirot over a final cup of strong continental coffee. "It is not happiness yet, but it is honesty." His eyes, once dry even in supposed grief, now carried the faint redness of a man who had wept privately for his wife, and for the life he had allowed to slip into ruin. Amelia and Dr. de Harlan Thorpe had married quietly in the village church the previous Saturday. No silk gown extravagance. She wore a simple wool dress the color of winter mist. He a dark suit, without flourish. They had taken a small house in the nearby market town, close enough to visit Reginald, far enough to begin anew. Amelia's hands no longer trembled when she reached for Thorpe's. She met his gaze openly, without the old, furtive glances. "I was so afraid of losing everything," she confessed to Poirot on the terrace, where cold air nipped at cheeks flushed with tentative hope. "Now I see I was losing myself instead." Thorpe's professional mask had softened. He smiled more readily, spoke less in clinical tones. Love no longer needed to hide in shadows. Bertram had surprised everyone most. The gambling markers and pawn tickets had been paid, some with money from selling his late mother's jewelry collection, the rest through a modest position secured at a London brokerage firm. He no longer slouched. His tweed had been replaced by a neat business suit. The constant cigarette had been cut to 3 a day. "I hated how she controlled me," he admitted to Poirot in the library, where bookshelves still smelled of wax. "But I hated myself more for letting her. This is the first time I've earned a salary instead of begging for one." His laugh was quieter now. No bitterness, only the sound of someone testing new ground. Miss Lydia Farnsworth had packed her trunks for the continent. A small inheritance from a distant aunt, ironically untouched by Victoria, allowed her to travel as she and Reginald once dreamed. She stood in the hall, some kid gloves finally put away, a simple wool traveling coat buttoned neatly. "I carried hate like a heavy suitcase for decades," she said softly. "It feels lighter now that I've set it down." She embraced Amelia briefly. Genuine warmth, no trace of old jealousy. "Be happy, my dear. Someone should." Graves remained at the manor, though his duties had lightened. Reginald had insisted he stay on with a proper pension arrangement. No more skimming, no more guilt. The butler moved through the rooms with the same erect posture, yet his steps seemed less mechanical. 23 years is a long performance, sir," he told Poirot while polishing silver in the pantry. "I am grateful to retire from the leading role." A small, rare smile touched his lips. "Now, on the director method for the household entire. The performance. Once each wore a carefully rehearsed part. Grieving husband, dutiful daughter, wayward son, loyal friend, helpful doctor, faithful servant. Gestures measured, voices modulated, eyes averted or too steady. The tell, but in the aftermath no tells remain to betray. Hands no longer clench in hidden fear. Eyes meet without flinching. Shoulders relax from the strain of holding masks in place. The psychology. After revelation, the human soul often does what it could not before. Adapt. In the chocolate box affair, exposure stripped illusions and forced redemption. Men who performed virtue while hiding. Vice found, in confession, the chance to become virtuous in truth. So here. Masks discarded do not leave emptiness. They leave space for authenticity to grow. The psyche, freed from performance's exhaustion, begins to heal. The truth, justice does not only punish, it transforms. You see it now, no? Watch this performance carefully, mon ami. Is it truth or theatre? Now, all truth. No more scripts. The mask slips. Did you catch it? None left to slip. You watch with Poirot, non? You see how this one's hands tremble, only with the gentle tremor of new beginnings, the careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami. Will notice futures opening like windows thrown wide after long closure. Ask yourself, why does she avoid his eyes no longer? Because nothing remains to hide. The tension that once rose like a tightening string has eased. No one will break character soon, because character itself has been reclaimed. This actor plays grief. But observe the eyes. Where is the moisture? Healing tears when needed, quiet joy when earned. Poirot made one final expressive gesture toward the open front door, where his car waited in the drive. The cold January air carried the clean scent of frost and distant wood smoke from neighboring chimneys. The grandfather clock chimed the hour, clear, unhurried. The theatre emptied, but the lessons lingered. Chapter 10. Poirot reviews the performance. Hercule Poirot's London apartment welcomed him back like an old friend on this crisp January evening of 2026. The Art Deco furnishings, polished mahogany side tables, crystal lamps with geometric shades, velvet armchairs in deep burgundy, had been arranged with his customary precision. A small fire crackled in the grate, sending gentle warmth across the room, and carrying the comforting scent of wood smoke, mingled with the herbal steam rising from his tisane cup. Outside, the city lights twinkled through frost-rimed windows. Inside, order reigned. Poirot reclined in his favorite chair, small hands folded neatly, and regarded the neat stack of newspapers and letters on the low table beside him. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. "The performance at Evergreen Manor is reviewed, mon ami," he said aloud to the empty room, as though Hastings still sat opposite. "Let us examine it once more, not for clues, but for what it teaches about the human theatre." Recent letters had arrived from the players. Sir Reginald wrote briefly. The Manor stood quieter now, debts restructured, a modest life begun. He had taken up gardening, practical roses, not hothouse extravagance. Amelia and Harlan Thorpe sent a wedding photograph. Simple, joyful, her hand resting openly on his arm. Bertram's note was short, proud. First month's salary deposited, no new debts incurred. Miss Farnsworth posted a card from Florence. Old jealousy shed like an outgrown coat. Graves enclosed a formal thank you for the reference that secured his pension without stain. And Elsie, her solicitor had written. She awaited trial with quiet resignation, no longer hiding behind deference. Why do people perform rather than reveal truth? The psyche dons masks because naked honesty invites judgment, rejection, loss. Society scripts the roles. Wealthy man must appear solvent, daughter dutiful, servant invisible, lover detached. Greed performs as ambition, guilt as victimhood, love as indifference, hate as loyalty. At Evergreen, each actor believed the mask protected them. Sir Reginald from ruin, Amelia from disinheritance, Elsie from abandonment. Yet masks fatigue the wearer. The body rebels. A steady hand when chaos should reign, dry eyes in professed grief, a too perfect bow on a murder weapon. Guilt always betrays because the little grey cells never sleep. Pulse quickens, gaze darts, fingers tighten. The machine of flesh cannot sustain eternal fiction. I compare this to the murder on the links, where a man performed devoted husband while concealing murderous intent. He rehearsed every gesture, the shocked cry, the frantic search, the steady alibi. Yet one error, a footprint too deliberate, a cigarette ash placed just so, betrayed him. There, as here, the psychology was identical. The performer overcompensates. Fear of discovery makes the act too polished. True emotion stumbles, hesitates, leaves traces. In both cases, the mask cracked under pressure because human nature craves release. Confession, even unintended, is the soul's exhale after holding breath too long. The psychology of revelation fascinates me most. When the spotlight falls, when Poirot assembles the cast and reviews each role, the performer often collapses not from fear alone, but from relief. The weight lifts. Tears flow genuine at last. Elsie's sobs in the drawing room were not despair only. They carried catharsis. She had carried resentment like lead for years. Speaking it aloud freed her, even as it condemned her. So it is universally. The human being is not built for perpetual deception. Fatigue sets in. The psyche demands alignment between inner truth and outer show. When forced to confront the discrepancy, revelation follows, sometimes in confession, sometimes in the small, fatal slip. Why does truth ultimately triumph over performance? Because performance requires constant energy, rehearsal, vigilance, adjustment. Truth requires none. It simply is. Lies multiply to cover lies. Truth stands solitary and endures. In the theatre of crime, the curtain must fall, because no actor can play forever without forgetting lines. The body forgets first. The eyes, the hands, the breath. And when the little grey cells observe these betrayals, the mask becomes unbearable. To you, the careful listener who has followed this drama from stage setting to final bow, examine your own performances. What role do you play when no one watches? The dutiful child, the successful professional, the loyal friend. Ask, what mask have I worn so long that I forget it is a mask? Watch for your own tells, the averted gaze, the too steady voice, the hand that trembles only in solitude. Truth does not rehearse, but it also does not tire. When you allow it to speak, when you discard the costume, the relief is immediate, even if painful. Poirot sipped his tisane, its herbal warmth soothing. He arranged the letters into perfect alignment once more. "Until the next theatre of crime calls, mes amis," he said softly to the flickering firelight. "Poirot will be watching. Not merely the suspects, the performers in every human drama. For in the end, we are all on stage, and truth, she always takes her bow." He rose, small figure silhouetted against the window, where city lights danced like distant footlights. The grandfather clock in the hall chimed 10, clear, unhurried. The apartment settled into quiet order. The performance was closed. Lessons lingered. Until the next theatre of crime, mes amis. Poirot watches always,